Good evening and welcome. It's my great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of Emirates Society of Internal Medicine to attend today's lecture of COVID-19 vaccine updates. As you know, COVID-19 is causing tragic loss of life, and the measures needed to fight it have turned our world upside down. As most governments struggle to contain the virus, scientists were rushing to identify and find treatments that work against COVID-19. With many vaccines now approved, safe and effective vaccines are a game-changing tool. Here we will discuss the efficacy of current approved COVID vaccines, side effects and complications, as well as vaccine and herd immunity. I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Islam. He served as consultant and professor of medicine in different medical colleges. He worked as editor-in-chief of different journals of Bangladesh and also reviewer of many international journals. He is the past president of Bangladesh Society of Medicine and founder governor of American College of Physicians. He is the executive member of International Society of Internal Medicine. And I would like to introduce Dr. Ahmed Al-Hamadi. He is a consultant in infectious disease and internal medicine at Tuam Hospital. He is adjunct assistant professor, College of Medicine and Health Sciences. He completed fellowship in advanced infectious disease and in transplantation infectious disease from Medical School, Houston, Texas. He is member of AMR UAE Committee, UAE HIV Treatment Committee, vice lead of COVID-19 National Research Sub-Therapeutic Committee, and principal investigator for the Sputnik V vaccine UAE phase 3 trial. So welcome, doctors. We'll start now with Dr. Ahmed Al-Hamadi.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and I'm very happy to be here today. I hope you can hear me well. So for those who don't know me, my name is Ahmed Al-Hamadi. I'm a consultant infectious disease at Tuam Hospital and currently serving as the PI for the Sputnik V Russian vaccine trial in the UAE. Try to make my presentation today as simple as possible. The global current situation for the COVID as it stands as of today, actually this is the statistics from the WHO as of yesterday. And as you can see, there are more than 175 million cases reported until yesterday, with more than 3.8 million deaths worldwide. So as you know, it started back in end of 2019 in Wuhan, and then rapidly spread to become a pandemic. Later on, with the US and Europe becoming the epicenter of this pandemic, and most recently with Southeast area and India becoming the epicenter of this infection. In order to understand the vaccines, we have first to understand how the immune system works. And the immune system is divided into two main parts. One is the innate immunity, which is kind of built in, and it's the immediate line of defense against the invading pathogens. And this is made of the physical and chemical barrier, as well as cells such as the macrophages, the natural killer cells, mast cells, and so on. What makes it very unique is that they work immediately against these pathogens, even starting from one day after the infection. The adaptive immunity, which is more specific to the infection, and that involves the B cells and the cellular responses with T cells. That starts later on, somewhere between 6 to 8 days. And as you can see in this chart, the virus and the symptoms can be detected as early as 3 to 5 days after the infection starts. Later on, the cellular immunity kicks in somewhere in between 5 to 7 days, and then with the first antibody response with the IgM, and later on with the class switching to IgG. The cellular immunity tends to wear over time, and memory immune response is generated. So when a vaccinated person encounters the virus again, The vaccine uses the principle of the adaptive immune system, because this is what you need to have in order to get a response down the line when the body gets exposed again to the virus. So when you encounter the virus again, the body responds by activating the B and T cells that leads to the rapid clearance of the virus and the infection. And hopefully to get a milder form of infection or no symptoms at all. And the immune memory then results from the prior infection or from the vaccination itself. So whether one or the other is better, that still remains for interpretation and for more studies, although you can argue in both ways. The immune response that is generated by the vaccines, how does it work? So the vaccines deliver an immunogen to the immune system in order to train it to recognize the pathogens when it's encountered naturally. And it does so by activating the CD4 helper cells that are in turn later on, activate the B cells to form and produce the neutralizing antibodies that are specific to the virus, and then by also activating the CD8 cytotoxic T lymphocytes that are now will go and will kill the cells that are infected with the virus with the proteins presented outside. An immunogen is a specific type of antigen that's able to elicit an immune response. And the choice of immunogens for the different vaccines, so different vaccines, as you will see, will have different mechanism of actions, and they have different immunogens. So some are more complicated and bigger than the others. But the choice of the immunogen will now impact the type of the immune response that is induced and generated. This will also impact the safety, development time, production time, cost, as well as the access of the vaccines, which largely depends on the production, transportation, storage in different temperatures, and the cold chains that go with all of this process. The immunogens in the current COVID-19 vaccines, or the ones that are in development, I believe now most of them are already in phase 2 or 3 trials, and some of them have been approved. So 4 main mechanisms: inactivated viruses, virus subunits, viral vectors, and RNA vaccines. Each of the different mechanisms have certain advantages and disadvantages. So for example, inactivated virus vaccines, for example, the Sinopharm, CanSino, they are basically inactivated dead viruses. They work best by inducing the antibody response. Because it's a dead virus, they require a larger quantity of the virus, but they have low or no cellular response. Other examples also are some types of influenza, rabies, and hepatitis A vaccines. The viral subunit, an example of that is the Novavax. It's a protein derived from a pathogen. Mainly here is the S spike protein. They have fewer side effects than the whole viruses, such as redness, swelling at the injection site, and maybe, however, poorly immunogenic and tend to have a complex process. The viral vectors, I think, these are viral pathogens using the what is encoded. We'll explain that later. They are expressed on a safe virus that does not cause disease. An example of that is the Sputnik vaccine, is the AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and they have the advantage of rapid development, strong cellular immunity, as well as very good antibody response, and they're relatively easy to produce. The disadvantage is that the prior exposure to vector viruses such as the adenovirus may reduce the immunogenicity, and some vectors may require boosting with a different vector. A way to explain this is, for example, the Sputnik vaccines. The Sputnik vaccine uses 2 different adenoviruses, which are adenovirus 26, which is a less common form of adenovirus or a strain of adenovirus, it's given first because it's less common, so the body has less chance to identify it. And then once you prime the response of the immunity, then you give a second strain, which is adenovirus 5, which is a more common strain, and the human body is more likely to have been exposed to it in the past. But by giving two different strains, you're trying to avoid this problem of prior exposure. The AstraZeneca uses a chimpanzee virus, which tends to have, again, it's a lower chance of exposure, but maybe for some reason, either due to the virus itself or due to some components of the virus, now have been associated with more side effects than Sputnik, for example. The nucleic acid vaccine, example of that is the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. And these are new technology of vaccines using the mRNA coding for a viral protein. They induce strong cellular immunity and lead to rapid development of the vaccine. However, they have relatively lower antibody response. So how do each virus mechanism work? So the inactivated viruses, the genetic materials have been destroyed to stop the disease-producing capacity, the pathogenicity. They cannot replicate inside the body, so they need a higher dose. And they also need an adjuvant, for example, aluminum. And these are molecules that help to stimulate the immune response to help strengthen the immune response and to better identify these vaccine and inactivated viruses. So they generally work best by inducing the antibody-mediated immune response. So what happens is the antigen-presenting cells, such as macrophages or dendritic cells, engulf these viruses, present them on their surfaces, and then by interacting with the CD4 T helper cells, lead to the production of the neutralizing antibodies. You'll see that this mechanism is very common in the different vaccines. However, they differ by the way they present themselves to the immune system. The viral subunit vaccine, such as the Novax, uses the antigen of the virus. So for example, here the S antigen with an adjuvant in a similar way that get presented to the antigen presenting cells, activate the CD4 T helper cells, and then lead to the production of the neutralizing antibodies. They again induce mainly the antibody-mediated immunity, and they also have the use of adjuvant to enhance the immune response. The viral vector vaccines, so what they do in this case is remove the pathogenic factors of the virus, such as the adenovirus or other viruses that are used, for example, the measles virus or the vesicular stomatitis virus, VSV. An advantage of these viruses, for example, the adenovirus, is that these are viruses that tend to home to lymph nodes, so they target these areas that increase the chance of presenting these S protein antigens to the immune response and generate the strong cellular as well as very good humoral immune response. These can be replicating or non-replicating. The non-replicating types, they infect a cell, produce the SARS-CoV antigen in that cell, but not a new virus. And the replicating ones, they also generate a new virus as well as the SARS-CoV-2 antigen as well. So they get the new viruses, or the antigen get presented to the antigen presenting cells, and by doing so, activate both the B cells to produce neutralizing antibodies and the cytotoxic lymphocytes to destroy the infected cells. The S antigens inside the cells then are seen by the body, and they, as we said, they induce both the helper and as well as the cytotoxic immune responses. The RNA vaccines, these are antigen coding strands of the messenger RNA or the mRNA that are now delivered inside a lipid coat. without the need for any other virus particles. It's a new technology, and what happens is that it fuses with the cell wall, and then inside the cells, the mRNA is translated using the machineries of the cell itself. And these are the mRNA gets translated into the protein S antigen. The S antigen gets presented into the antigen presenting cells, and in a similar way to the viral vector vaccines, they also activate the T helper cells, which lead to the activation of both cellular cytotoxic lymphocytes as well as the B cells, generating a strong immune response. So why does it take 2 doses? Well, the idea here is that the prime boost way mimics the natural immunity. So you give a first dose which primes the immune response, and then you go back 3-4 weeks or sometimes longer to give a second challenge to the immune system that will mimic now the immune response and will help to prepare the body for future infection, create memory cells that will now recognize the pathogens and will help it to prepare it for next time it encounters it in the future. And some types of vaccines, such as the AstraZeneca, it was noted that a larger time interval between the first and second dose led to the induction of a stronger immune response compared to the short interval. So now some preliminary data now suggests that the 12-week prime boost interval may result in improved vaccine efficacy compared to the 4 weeks or 28 days that was used originally. However, when you use the mRNA vaccines such as Pfizer or Moderna, then a 3 weeks or 4 weeks interval is recommended in that case. What about the SARS-CoV variants and COVID-19 vaccines? Well, the variants get generated by mutations to the genes of the spike protein, being the main pathogenic protein in the COVID-19 virus. And these variants may lead to reduced efficacy of the vaccines to protect against mild to moderate disease in the people that get infected with these variants. However, they tend to, we're still expecting it to work better in terms of severe disease and deaths. Again, this depends on the epitopes, which are the receptors binding domains on the spike protein itself, that may be more or less susceptible than, for example, if you use a smaller epitope in these vaccines, they tend to be more susceptible to the variants than those using the larger parts of the virus, such as the whole spike protein or the whole inactivated virus. So now other studies now are exploring the development of the COVID-19 vaccines that how to make it more difficult for the virus variant to evade the immunity generated by the natural infection or generated mainly by the vaccine in this case, is by maybe using a multivalent vaccine that includes both the new and the new S protein, or the epitopes or the areas of the virus, the pathogenic parts of the viruses, together with the old forms of the spike protein in a single dose or a double dose, depends on how the vaccine works. And or by using vaccines that target multiple sites on several viral proteins, as opposed to vaccines that target only one SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. Let's see. Okay, so this is how does the herd immunity work? So herd immunity is also known as the population immunity. It is the indirect protection that you get from an infectious disease that happens when a population is immune either through vaccination or through the immunity that's developed through previous infections. So this is using the case of measles. As you know, measles is very contagious, and it requires at least 95% vaccination. In the case of COVID, most studies using the reproductive number indicate herd immunity that's required to about 70%. So what determines what percentage of the population needed to be vaccinated in order to establish the herd immunity is the reproductive number. So the reproductive number is the ability of the virus of an infected person with the virus to infect how many persons that are exposed or around him. So the common flu each infected person can infect about 1.3. The COVID is somewhere between 2 to 3. Most studies are now maybe between 2.3 to 2.5. The measles, it is very, very contagious. So each infected person can infect about 15 to 20% around him. So that's why you require a very big percentage in the case of measles, and only require 60, 70%. Flu, maybe, if you look at the flu vaccinations, most of them now have the efficacy of percentage of somewhere between 30 to 70%, depends on the age. So in order to better define the role of the herd immunity, there are many factors that need to be taken into considerations. So we have to understand that exposing people to a virus that are proven to be scientifically harmful is scientifically problematic and unethical. The seroprevalence survey suggests that in most countries, still, including in Sweden, less than 10% of the population have been infected with COVID-19. But can we achieve that through vaccinations? Well, there are still some questions that remain to be answered. And some of them are, what percentage of population needs to have the immunity? Is it 70%? Is it more or less? How do natural infection or vaccination confer the protection? How does immunity really work? Is it driven by the B cells, T cells, memory cells? If and what to do, and to what degree do the vaccines prevent the transmission? And how long does the protection last from the vaccines versus natural infection? There are still some challenges and obstacles to achieving herd immunity. Some of them include the vaccine hesitancy. There are many anti-vaxxer movements going around, spreading false information, spreading fears against the vaccines and against the side effects of these vaccines, the long-term effects, which mostly, they don't have any problems in the long run, especially after the first couple of months. Vaccination of children, some vaccines like Pfizer have been approved for the use of ages 12 to 15. Other vaccines are still being studied for younger children, starting from the age of 3. So that will hopefully, the safety and immunogenicity, we will hopefully get to know more about it soon, inshallah. So what about the emergence of new COVID-19 variants? That also may pose some challenges against the vaccination itself, against even the detection of the virus itself by some available PCR methods and technologies. So this is like a moving target that we have to keep chasing. The frequency of the required vaccination, do we need to get vaccinated every 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? Do we need to get 2 doses every year, for example, or do we need to just get a booster after 1 year? These are all still some questions that need to be answered. Depends on what will happen, what variants that get generated, and what is the efficacy of the vaccines and the immunogenicity that's formed down the line in 3, 6, 9 months, and maybe 12 months. So these are all questions that remain to be answered. Finally, the disparities in the vaccine distribution. So some countries have vaccinated, most of the population, and they already have removed the masks. Some other vaccines, some other countries are still struggling with rates below 5%. So this also still poses some risk to the world. And the more you vaccinate, individuals, the more likely you can slow down or stop the spread, and the less chance the virus can mutate and develop into new variants. But until you achieve that and achieve, equal distribution according to the need of the population, that will also, pose some challenges in the future. Of course, you will have to prioritize some places to get vaccinated, especially when they have outbreaks. But we still need a better plan worldwide to better distribute the vaccines. This is all what I have for today, and I did not exceed much more time. Thank you. I think you're muted, Tahan. Sorry.
So thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for this nice presentation. Now we'll start with Dr. Islam. Yeah, Dr. Islam.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. This is a great pleasure for me to be here with the Emirat Society of Internal Medicine, that they have invited me to talk on a very important issue, which is effective COVID vaccine. I will try to tell which one is better, which one is more effective and most effective, but still we are not sure an adverse effect following immunization. So let us start the journey. The WHO Director General in 2020, he told that some people of all countries should be vaccinated on priority than all people of some countries. What was the last slide of Dr. Ahmed? That it is a quite disparity of the whole globe, that some of the country are below 5% and some achieved already 60, 70, 80% of their population. So this is nothing new. Everyone who used to visit the internet, they can see this, that the last few months in 2021, the world is showing this all red area is obviously, this is the Asian zone. In my introduction, I want to tell a few words that in 1800, our life expectancy was 30 years. But in 2019, it is almost 73 years. And this is called mortality revolution. This mortality revolution actually is, it has been possible by a vaccine played an important role. And that is why there are a lot of vaccines that came and saves our life and gives us our life expectancy much more than the expected. And the boss and the leader of this is Edward Jenner, who started the first smallpox vaccine in 1796. You can see when a vaccine is discovered, it takes at least a decade or 5 to 7 years. But if you start from 1798, you can see up to 2010, lot of vaccine, and it took a long journey. For example, typhoid vaccine took many years, 80, 90 years. Then some other vaccine. But you look at the last dot, the 2020, This is less than 9 months. Even it is less than for a gravid pregnancy, which takes almost 10 months time. But the vaccine came within 9 months. So this vaccine, talk on this vaccine, unusual time, the world is facing pandemic. So it is very difficult to talk about, but still I will try to what is happening, or the middle of the death and devastation. There was no other way. The scientists discovered the vaccine at the earliest possible time. So benefit of vaccine is not the cure, rather the prevention. So the country who are not getting the vaccine yet adequately, they cannot vaccinate their people. For them, the wearing mask is the shadow vaccine. That is very important. If we consider that the total vaccine, there are almost 284 vaccine is in the list of WHO, but in the clinical trial, there are 101. What is the situation of the vaccine? Let us go through some. If you consider, it is taken 11th of June, 5 days back from the vaccine tracker. You can see 359, they are there are trial of 359, but only 17, they got approval for use. So can you imagine how many vaccines are in different phases? So phase 1, 35, phase 2, 48, and phase 3, 35. Only 17, they got the approval for use. Of them, you can see there are 9 vaccines over here, but Covaxin, CanSino, Sputnik V, Johnson & Johnson, only these 4 are on the surface. The others are not. The other 8, if we consider 9 plus 8, 17, there are in this slide, Moderna, Oxford, Pfizer BioNTech, Serum Institute of India, that means Covishield. Sinopharm, they have 2, Sinopharm Beijing and Sinopharm Wuhan, and Sinovac. They are on the surface and they are being used in many countries, but TAC 911, it is only in 1 country. So if we check the run, here we can see that only 5 vaccines are in phase 4, but there are 17 vaccines are in use. If we consider my important many parts has been told by Dr. Ahmed, so I will be happy to skip those very quickly. If we consider the candidate for the clinical phases, the protein subunit and viral vector non-replicating, inactivated virus, and RNA virus. You can see the protein subunit, there are 2, and the viral vector, there are 5, the inactivated virus are 7, and mRNA are 3. So these total 17 vaccines are now in use. If we consider this, that the protein subunit, the Novavax is the best one so far, but it is yet not approved. Just day before yesterday, it has completed its the final 3rd phase trial, phase 3 trial in Mexico and USA, and has shown is a very good efficacy. But other 2, they are not doing well and limited use in some country. If we consider about the inactivated vaccine, inactivated virus, there are 7 of them. Covaxin, the 2 of China, rather 3 of China, Sinopharm 2, one is Beijing, one is Wuhan, and Sinovac. So these 4 are on the surface and they are being used in many countries. And if we consider the non-replicating viral vector, there are 5 of them: CanSino, Sputnik V, Johnson and Johnson, AstraZeneca, and Covishield, almost all are being used, but very little we know about CanSino. It is rather in some less country they are using this. Considering all this, we have 4 types of COVID vaccine that already Dr. Ahmed told. I will go here very quickly because the others part I have to mention much more than this. You can see the whole vaccine, there are 2 main approach. One is live attenuated vaccine. And we are using MMR, for example, for many years ago. And another is inactivated vaccine. And the best example is Sinopharm. This is inactivated vaccine. And how it works, it is already told. And actually, the inactivated vaccine virus, very nicely mentioned by Dr. Ahmed, the genetic material has been destroyed so that it cannot replicate, but it still can trigger the immune response. If you consider the protein subunit, this is the spike protein of the coronavirus, and this is the nanoparticle. And when the vaccine is injected, it stimulates the immune system to produce the antibody and T-cell response. And we are using now the hepatitis V vaccine, which is a protein subunit. Why I am giving the current example? Because so that you can make the comparison. And Novavax is the best example of protein subunit. Currently is just completed the phase 3 trial. Already Dr. Ahmed told about the nucleic acid, and it is the genetic material, either RNA or DNA, and trigger the antigen formation. And in case of COVID-19, the spike protein, it is usually taken, and the blueprint of that, the TD piece of the genetic code, he has shown it very nicely that this has been taken and goes to the cell. Then the translation of the messenger RNA into the our body cell. So this mechanism, rather, it is very new. Before, this sort of mRNA vaccine was not used. This mRNA for human use, this is first time. So every people, those who are in the field of rather vaccinology and internists like me, we are very much eager to know about this vaccine. And the immune reaction is very strong in this type of vaccine. So, you know, the Pfizer and Moderna are the best example. The viral vectors, usually the harmless virus, as already in the first lecture, you have heard that this is the harmless, either chimpanzee or other adenovirus. They have taken as a vector, and actually this goes inside the body, and the spike protein, they found the SARS-CoV-2, and Oxford and Johnson, they are the best example of this. If we go for the vaccine efficacy, this is very important part that I will try to make you understand. A vaccine with an efficacy of 90% in a trial, for instance, means there was a 90% reduction in the case of the disease in vaccinated group compared to unvaccinated group. For example, when, for example, if I consider that Pfizer BioNTech, when they started, they divide the population into 2, the vaccine and the placebo, almost at 22,000 plus in each group. So when they observed them, the vaccinated group, only 8 people are infected, and the placebo group, 162 people are infected. So if it would have been, for example, the 160 plus 8 equal to 170. If we divide by 2, if 85 people is infected in the vaccinated group and 85 in the placebo group, that means this vaccine is efficacy 0. But on the other hand, If there is no person infected in the vaccinated group and 170 infected in the placebo group, the vaccine is 100% efficacy. But in case of Pfizer BioNTech, what happened? 8 in the vaccinated group and 162 in the placebo group. So 8 of 162 with the 95% confidence interval, it came as of 95% efficacy. So each vaccinated person is 90% less likely to get disease each time when they will be exposed than the non-vaccinated. It does not mean that the vaccinated person will never be affected. They will be affected, but the disease will be in a very minimum stage, either mild to moderate, life-threatening, severe, or death will not occur. That is why efficacy in the laboratory condition not always translate to the effectiveness. And so an efficacy trial sometimes overestimate the vaccine impact in practice. Obviously, vaccine efficacy is influenced by transmissibility. You can remember, if you go through some of the publication in the last year, when Pfizer and Moderna, they were doing this, it was summer. And at that time in the United States, the transmissibility was low. And obviously, when the transmissibility is low, it affects the vaccine outcome. But when Johnson started, it works. That time the winter started, so the transmissibility was high. And though the Johnson efficacy is less than Pfizer, but you cannot tell that Johnson & Johnson is less effective than Pfizer, because they did this work when there is high transmissibility. So this is very important, that efficacy number really just tell you what happened when the vaccine was on trial, but it is not exactly that what will happen in the real world. This we should keep in mind. People not included in the trial, like because of some health issue. So this is also an influencing factor. Taking some drugs like methotrexate, like some immunosuppressive drugs. So this we do not know that this influenced the trial or not. Even as you know, though Pfizer is claiming that below from 12 and above they are using, but when they did it, the young children were not included in the vaccine. And we know that the new threat is the mutant variant. And when this vaccine is discovered, at that time, this mutant were not available. The mutant started coming in the coming years, or the last part of the 2020. So these are all important. This is a very new one. It is 14 June. India now telling that the Delta Plus, it is much more virulent than the B1.167.2. So Delta Plus is something new. We don't know what we are going to see in future. So vaccine effectiveness again depends on chronic illness, age, how the vaccine is stored, and how it has been administered. It has been kept in a normal temperature for a long time. If it is not maintained 2 to 8 degrees, if the vaccine is like that, or in case of Pfizer, it is ultra temperature is required, ultra freezer rather. So these all conditions can reduce the efficacy. So right away, you can't say that this vaccine is the best and this is okay, but almost all the vaccines, they are trying to give the people a comfort zone. The effectiveness of vaccine is measured by the epidemiologists. They are giving some observational study that the treatment versus placebo group are not randomly assigned. This I told you before. Despite everything, when still you are using flu shot, and do you know that flu shot is only 40 to 60 on an average 50% effective, but it is saving thousands of life in a year. So now I will go in for individual vaccine profile, because there are 17 vaccine. I will not go in the 17 vaccine. As much as possible, those vaccine which are being used in many countries of the world, I will talk on those. First, you come Pfizer BioNTech. In December 11, 2020, this became the first COVID vaccine to receive the FDA emergency use authorization. But the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine had a strict requirement, because to keep an ultra cold temperature -90 or average -70°F, it is very difficult. But many countries they cannot keep this huge number. But in United States, they are doing. The interesting is status of the vaccine is 85 countries are using this vaccine. I have given few names over here, but 85 countries. Most interesting is there are 15 countries where 26 trial held, and this is one of the very important issue, that 15 countries, 26 trial, 85 countries now they are consuming. And I think everybody knows that 2 shots. But in some country, they are not maintaining 21 days apart. As I know, in USA it is okay, but other parts of the world, they are giving it because of the supply, because of the availability. They are giving it either 6 weeks or 8 weeks after. So always they are not following the rules that is being implied by the vaccine authority. Efficacy 95%, there is no doubt, without prior infection. And the most important is that the researcher report that the vaccine is equally effective across the variety of the different people, including the age, gender, race, ethnicity, and also the BMI. And in clinical trial, the vaccine is 100% effective in preventing severe disease and death, that I told just when I was describing how it works. In early May, this vaccine was found to be effective almost in 2 paper publication was there. The alpha is the British one, and the beta is the South African one. And also recent another study, they are showing that it is effective against the Delta virus. The adverse effect following immunization is most commonly chills, headache. This is a very common, and usually the pain, tiredness, redness, swelling at the injection site, which usually if you advise, it remains for 1 or 2 days, take more and more fluid. Medication like as paracetamol is enough. But with Pfizer BioNTech, there are 11 cases in 18 million vaccination. Very, very negligible. They appear to be triggered the anaphylaxis, and they are treatable, and they use epinephrine, and the life was saved. And for this reason, CDC clearly advised that after vaccination, you must stay at the center for 15 minutes. And if there is no allergy to anything, you will stay for 30 minutes. The brother of Pfizer BioNTech is Moderna. It is an mRNA vaccine. Just 1 week after the Pfizer, 18 December, it took the emergency use authorization from FDA. Moderna obviously is there two key difference with this, that it can be kept not like -70. So the stored it can be stored rather in 30 degree or 20 degrees Celsius. Moreover, normal refrigeration make the distribution easier and storage. Moderna, 49 countries in the world, they are using as on 11th of June this year. And there are 4 countries with 21 trial. So this is well-tested vaccine. And there are 2 shots, not like Pfizer, this is 21 days apart. But I tell you again, this is again adult 18 and older, you can use. But many countries, they are using not 28 days, depending on the availability, they are spacing the time. Almost 95% efficacy. And you can see that again, this is like the almost I'm repeating the Pfizer BioNTech the same way they have brought this Moderna vaccine, and it is again proven that researchers suggest that against alpha and beta variant, it is very much effective. Adverse effect, just like Pfizer, and few such thing happens. What I was talking just a few minutes before that, there is the description that 43,548 participants, and this is the paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine in December 31, and very clearly they have described, and obviously the Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech, they are in the United States, they received the emergency authorization because the efficacy as well as the safety of the virus, of the vaccine. One negative issue of the messenger RNA virus vaccine is many countries, they cannot afford because of the relatively expensive cost and the storage that I have already told. But in case of Moderna, in 30 days, you can refrigerate in 2 to 8 degrees. But in case of Pfizer, it is only 5 days. So they have a lot of advantages with some disadvantages for not all the countries of this world, but many countries they cannot afford because of the price and so many other things. If we come to the Oxford AstraZeneca, this is the vaccine for our whole world. This is a vaccine which give us very new hope, very new something. And there are some publication, many publication, I am showing few. You can see the vaccine is low in cost, can be stored, transported, handled in normal refrigeration for at least 6 months. So this is the most advantage of this vaccine. But when it is started use in UK and other European countries, one very unprecedented issues that came out, that is VITT, vaccine induced immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia. So initially people are panicked. So there was bar, sometimes it was not used. Then again, it has been seen by EMA regulators that the benefit of the vaccine still outweighs the risk. So this is the only vaccine which has been approved in more than 100 countries of the world. And this is the only vaccine which has been trial in 32 centers of 19 countries. So this vaccine is initially there are some negative attitude, but ultimately this is a very nice, it shows ultimately. And 2 shots, as Dr. Ahmad told, that if it gives 12 weeks apart, it is better. Efficacy is 76 and 100% against the severe disease. And obviously recent study shows us AstraZeneca vaccine is effective against Delta variant, and it prevents transmission 100% from asymptomatic patient. The adverse effect of different number, you can see these are almost same, but very rare VITT that occurs. Johnson and Johnson. Johnson and Johnson vaccine, they are adenovirus 26 with COV2 S protein. And what is the issue actually? The issue is the Johnson and Johnson is the only vaccine so far discovered this single shot. And 96% participant are ages more than 65 years and older. And they are telling that we can produce 1 billion dose by 2021. So this is one of the very promising vaccine so far we can think about. By 57 days, it can reach the 100%. On February 27, when it got the emergency use approval, few days after, in April, few months after, 6 cases, it is rare, but 6 serious clotting problem occurred, like this VIT and superior sagittal sinus thrombosis. And for some time it was banned, and it has been taken on 23rd of April. FDA ended it and recommend the pause, and the vaccine again started using, and it can be stored in the normal refrigerator. This vaccine is approved in 44 countries, and also in 10 countries, 17 trial, it has been occurred. This is the only single shot vaccine. 72% overall efficacy and 86% against the severe disease. And this has been proved that it is very much effective in case of beta variant. The adverse effect, usually no allergic reaction has been reported in the clinical trial, but this vaccine is a little bit going behind because of the VITT, but now there is no such report. The other vaccine, what causes, like the measles vaccine, when a baby is given a vaccine of measles, there is fever, some pain at the site, malaise, and etc. This is nothing new for the, but the Novavax, unfortunately, this is in the peer review. I think very quickly it will come for authorization. This vaccine has been shown to be effective not only against COVID-19, but also against the mutant. And day before yesterday, the vaccine result came that it is 90 to 91% effective. And there are 2 shots. And as because this vaccine is not started using for general population as like other vaccine, so we will be knowing about this vaccine in future a lot. Efficacy, you know. Sputnik, it is being used in UAE, I know, and Sputnik has got a very, very good advantage. Sometimes I feel that the Russian, they use their brain very early. 2 vector were used here. The Sputnik V of Russia uses 2 different human adenoviral vector. One is the cold adenovirus 26 and another is adenovirus 25. So 26 and 5, these 2 vaccine shots to ensure the immunity. The first dose not make the second dose less effective. Theoretically, this is a very attractive candidate vaccine, and efficacy is more than 90%. 68 countries in the phase 3 trial, it is they are using, and in 6 countries, 19 trial occurred for this. This Sputnik vaccine need to be stored in -18, but in dry powder, it can be kept in normal temperature. This is a Russian vaccine, and you can see that this is an adenovirus. The most important graph here, you can see if you use one vaccine, after some months it comes down, after some days rather. If you use 26, it goes flat for some time. But when you are using the second shot, it goes a boost, and this plateau is going on. That is why this is the unique. This vaccine is very unique. Regarding the Sinopharm, we have to know that Sinopharm has obviously this Sinopharm is an inactivated vaccine. But the issue is Sinopharm Beijing and Sinopharm Wuhan. Sinopharm Beijing is much superior regarding the activities because 47 countries are using. And there are 4 countries, there are trial and 7 centers. On the other hand, the Wuhan Verocell, it is approved in 2 countries only. And only in China and maybe some 7 centers, they did the trial. But Beijing Sinopharm, the core V is much better than that of the Sinopharm Wuhan. Obviously, this is nearly 80%, and death, it can prevent 100%, and it is also a standard refrigeration. If I consider that how standard refrigeration can make the vaccine available and poor country, middle income country, some other country, they can use. You can see the list: AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, Sinovac vaccine, CanSino, Novavax, Johnson, and in France, they are bringing the Sanofi GSK and some other country in Belgium. So these vaccines can be kept in 2 to 8 degrees. So we should know this because this is also important for a country. Vaccine mixing, it's a great debate nowadays. As on 9th of June, this publication, they are telling that vaccine mixing depends on whether the vaccine, same vaccine, good quantity is available or not available. That is the most important issue. And mixing vaccine, none of the countries they are allowing. Though in a Spain, 600 patients, they are giving, the paper is in the peer review, it will come. In Taiwan, they are doing. Knowingly or unknowingly, in India, they are giving Covishield and Covaxin in same patient. And there are 22 cases, but they did not have anything in the first few days or first few weeks. But in most of the conditions, scientists are discouraging that do not do this because it is not tested or proven. If at all, if you want to, you can use, there is no sufficient data on this. You can give AstraZeneca first, and then the second one, you can give the Pfizer BioNTech. But mixing a vaccine appears boost immunity. This is not a randomized control trial, any paper in anywhere yet. But I think in the coming days, we will get it. This one, I will go very quick, the VIT. As you know, there are so many names of the VIT. VITT, or somebody called it as thrombocytopenic, thrombosis thrombocytopenia syndrome, VPIT, that is prothrombotic immune. This is a very rare condition, but when it was published, it is seen in the red line, you can see 1 in 26,000 to 1 in 1,27,000 in AstraZeneca or Covishield administered person, mostly in Norway and Denmark. And it occurs in April. And at that time, we were really upset if this vaccine is not available, what to do. But later on, it shows that it is 0.0004 or something like that. So it is very negligible for any vaccine. So similar thing happened with the Johnson & Johnson that I told you. This is how you can think about. I will go for the student as well as the resident. If symptoms of thrombocytopenia is there or bleeding, is the patient is on vaccine. So you ask some question. Severe headache, focal neurological seizure, blurred vision, double vision, shortness of breath, something like that. If it is not, it is unlikely to be beat. If it is yes, do the CBC. If the CBC less than platelet is less, there is a possibility. Do the D-dimer, blood film, and imaging of the clinical suspicion. There may be abdominal pain. So a splanchnic thrombosis can occur. So doing all this investigation, you can come to a conclusion that this is it. Remember that heparin can induce this, which is called heat. So you are using heparin. So in those cases, you must make the difference between these two. These are some examples. The American College of Cardiology, they said, yes, there are Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca. Some features are there, but it's still, this is wonderful. We can use it. But they clearly mention on 8th of June that there is no reported case from Moderna and Pfizer. So obviously Moderna and Pfizer are very, very good by coming the history and available data so far. Available vaccine, all available vaccine that I have shown to you are proven very high safety and high effectiveness. Though there are some events with AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. If we compare the whole vaccine over here, I have already told, I will not spoil the time. You can see death prevention, 100% all the vaccines. I will not mention all the name. You can show on the screen. Pfizer, Moderna, Oxford, Johnson, Sinopharm, Sinovac, Sputnik, Novavax, all they prevent the death as well as severe disease. Efficacy may differ. Already the types of vaccine is told. Only the standard refrigeration that I have shown in one slide. There is a surprise news that nanotube designed to capture and clear the SARS-CoV-2 when this vaccine, this will come and spray to the nose. And this nanotube are dotted with AC2 receptor, and that neutralize the antibody and bind the virus so that it cannot affect or infect the cell, and it will prevent. I think this will come in the coming days. This is the picture. What is going on? This is a painstaking slide. You can see Asia, there are more than 4.5 billion people in the Asia, but we are getting only 4.8% of the vaccine. On the other hand, America and Europe, if you combine these two, there are 55% vaccine with these two region. America means America, North America, and Europe. So this is the disparity that I was talking. Nobody is safe if everybody is not safe. So this is the uniform distribution of vaccine is needed, because this is not the disease of any country. This is the disease of the whole globe. So we have to think about the whole globe. Some few important points that vaccine is previously infected individual, should you give or not? Obviously, because by infection, the immunity remains for 6 months. It has been, there are some papers. And if you are infected without any complication, you can take the vaccine 4 to 6 weeks after. If you take the convalescent plasma or you are taking monoclonal antibody, it should be 3 months. And sometimes you can see that the pregnant woman, in the initial stage, I can remember, we could not give answer to about the pregnant woman. But now there are many papers from the Royal College of Gynecology and many others that they are telling you can use the pregnant woman, the vaccine. And the antibody through transplacental, they have proven it. goes to the baby and the baby remain protected. And obviously, one should not stop breastfeeding. And if someone is thinking that I want to take baby, should I take vaccine? Yes, of course. If you are infected with COVID, it is 6 months. But with the vaccine, we do not know. Maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year. Maybe booster is needed in future, we don't know. Only we know about the Pfizer-BioNTech. If you take one vaccine and the vaccine is not available, or you cannot take the vaccine, it is 52% give the immunity. So there are some pearls, and I am at the end of my lecture, that all approved vaccine, including Pfizer and all others, 100% efficacy against the severity of the disease. Obviously, vaccine of large cohort of the population is important if we want to save the humanity. Nasal vaccine is coming. Pregnant lady can be safely vaccinated. Those who has got allergy, they should be safely vaccinated, should take the history. 4 to 6 weeks, I told. Diabetic patient must take the vaccine earlier. Very important that those who are taking steroid for some other reason, the steroid dose should be reduced, because the steroid can suppress the immunity of the patient. So the proper immune response may not occur. In case of rheumatoid arthritis and many other diseases, we are using methotrexate. The methotrexate should be stopped 2 weeks before the vaccine and should start 2 weeks after the vaccine. So this is very important. And we should wait for the transplant patient, especially the marrow transplant, and also the older to encourage the vaccine to prevent the mortality. Regarding CKD, heart failure, and others, vaccine should be taken, but the immune response may be poor. And immunocompromised should take the Covishield vaccine, as it has non-replicating viral vector, and coding for spike protein is much good here. Finally, current vaccine all showed great promise. So all vaccine has 100% effectiveness in preventing death. What is the best vaccine? If you ask me, what is the best vaccine? I should say the best vaccine is right now for you is the one that you are offered. With each shot that goes in some arms, we get closer to the end of the pandemic. We have to save our world. Otherwise, if we cannot save, no one is safe unless everyone is safe. That I told earlier. Before I conclude, I must say that we are going to see a very good day ahead. The Novavax is a very promising vaccine. If I am asked, because I have already vaccinated with AstraZeneca or Covishield. The Novavax is the best vaccine that is coming, and with very minimum side effect, they can produce millions and millions per year. I'm thankful to Dr. Audrey, who helped me in preparing this. And thank you very much for your patient sharing. Thanks ESIM for a very great opportunity. And I am seeing 387 participants, they are listening. So it's a great opportunity for me, and hope that we will again join in some other platform. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm not listening any sound.
So thank you very much, Islam, for your excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Dr. Ahmed, also for your excellent presentation. Dr. Islam, you answered many questions in your presentation, and I saw also Dr. Ahmed, he answered other questions in chatting. We'll take now some questions from our audience. Okay, there is a question. Can a person has history of Stephen Johnson with the flu vaccine reaction, and he has history of diabetes mellitus and hypertension? Can he receive the COVID vaccine?
This question to me, I think.
Yes.
Oh, so the patient has a Stephen Johnson due to what drug? Which drug?
Flu vaccine.
Flu vaccine.
Yes.
Is this very common, very unnatural? But every year we used to take flu vaccine, but even then there should be a delay because when the body is facing some antigen antibody reaction, we should give a pause. Though it is not clearly written in any book or in any literature that what will happen regarding the Stephen Johnson, but they are, I told in my lecture, when they are using monoclonal antibody, you wait for 90 days. So it is better to wait for some days so that the body can, sorry, so the body can adjust the vaccine once again. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Ahmed, another question. If a person is fully vaccinated and he has close contact with COVID patients, does he need for isolation? Do we need to isolate this person?
Yes, for sure. So always the idea of vaccination is that you're trying to prevent the serious complications, the severe form of disease. So the vaccination itself and the presence of antibodies, even if you have IgA antibodies in your nose, that will not prevent you from carrying the virus to you. You may develop some symptoms that are expected to be less being vaccinated, but they can also be asymptomatic and carry the virus to someone else. So I would say yes.
Okay, doctor, but for how many days we need to isolate this patient or this person?
So we have to follow the same, recommendations. So vaccinated here, for example, is 5 to 7 days. That should be adequate, in order for the body to clear. The idea of the vaccination here is that the body is able to rapidly clear the virus faster than those who are not vaccinated. So 5 to 7 days should be enough in these patients, of course, with repeating the test according to the local guidelines. Depends where you are.
Okay, Dr. Islam.
Yes.
Regarding this mixing vaccines, mixing the vaccines. Now, for example, a person who received Sinopharm, 2 doses of Sinopharm, and advised to take the booster dose of Pfizer. Does he need to receive 2 doses of Pfizer or only a booster of 1 dose?
Up till now, I have put one very interesting query that remix is a debate. Still, there is no such much evidence regarding the remixing of the vaccine. But it is not required to take 2 doses of Pfizer. It is the boost that will make by the messenger RNA virus. So single dose, maybe because our vaccine journey is for how many months? Less than a year. So after 1 year, we will understand what to do. We will understand that possibly we have to take every year booster, either with the same vaccine or with the, that I told, either Novavax or Pfizer or Moderna, which is very harmless and can boost the immune system much better than others.
Okay. Also, there is another question for Dr. Islam regarding the side effects. Now, most of the vaccines, there are some percentage of side effects. The question is, which vaccine is safest to be given to a fragile patient?
Fragile means clinically ill.
Yes.
Okay, as I told that who are the fragile patient? As you know, that uncontrolled diabetes, pregnant mother, suffering from CKD, ischemic heart disease, on cancer chemotherapy. These are the fragile patients. So these sort of patient, they should get a vaccine which is much more, has wide efficacy and wide safety. And I was making fun that if I could take one Novavax, so Novavax is the #1 candidate. and otherwise you can give mRNA vaccine. But it is not absolute. If it is not available, obviously you can give the non-replicating viral vector. This is also safe. This is also safe.
Okay. Dr. Ahmed, there is one question. How soon after recovering from COVID-19 infection can the patient get the vaccine?
So this is a tricky question. Depends on the report. So some reports say that the natural infection can give you immunity 6 to 12 months, but now you get faced with the issue of variants. Yeah? So you can be vaccinated, get a severe disease from a variant, and then you are still at risk for another variant. As soon as you get recovery, I would say like around 2 weeks after you get the infection, you can start getting the vaccines. Do we need to take it that soon? Probably not. So somewhere between 2 weeks to 3 months after the infection will be the best time to do it. The reason is, the vaccine will help you to provide better immunity for the variants rather than the natural infection. That's, a proposed theory.
Dr. Ahmad has truly said, just I'm adding one point that I have shown in my slide. Obviously, in a mutant or a variant, vaccine is the answer. It is not that naturally it will improve. Rather, vaccine will cover. I have shown you that there are at least 3 or 4 vaccines which works against the variant. So far, we do not know how many variants will come in future. We do not know. But so far, we know that this works better than other. So 3 or 4, that is working very well. He is very much right.
Okay, we'll take, I think, the last question because of the time. Now, there is one question. What is the maximum gap between the 2 doses for Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Sputnik, after which we should ask the person to restart vaccination from the beginning? So
The second dose.
Yeah, the second dose.
I told
the maximum gap.
Pardon? Maximum gap. Yes. Actually, the company, when they are producing, when they did the trial, there is a recommendation. Like Pfizer, it is 3 weeks, and Moderna, it is 4 weeks. In AstraZeneca, it is you can take it 2 months, 8 to 12 weeks. But depending on the availability, if you take it later, for example, if you take a Pfizer BioNTech vaccine 6 weeks later or 8 weeks later, it will not cause harm to the efficacy. But don't go beyond 8 weeks or 12 weeks. So it is better to be 2 vaccine, earliest for keeping in mind, earliest 3 weeks, latest 3 months. So that is the only answer, nothing else.
Yes, okay. So I think it's enough for the questions now. Thank you, Dr. Islam. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. And we hope we'll meet you again for the other presentation, inshallah.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful here really to meet with Dr. Ahmed and also Dr. Tahini. It was a great session in the last few months because with UK and USA in the country, we do it. But it was very excellent, very excellent. And I must appreciate Dr. Ahmed because he's the lead in the Sinopharm I saw in the first slide.
Sputnik, the Sputnik.
Yeah, Sputnik, sorry, not. And Sputnik is an amazing vaccine that I told in my lecture. That's really, it is an amazing, and it gives a good plateau of the protection. Maybe in the next year, we will be knowing that it is giving 1 year more protection. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much.
Professor Islam. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, we're not able to answer. There are so many good questions.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.